Hey, good afternoon. My name's John with the Pine Tree. I have the great pleasure of sitting here with Rick Downey.
Hi, John. How are you?
Very well, Rick.
Good.
Now,
Good.
there's an election coming up, isn't there?
I believe there is. I believe there is. There's something in the air.
And
Maybe
there's
the signs
stacks of
and-
like campaign signs off here, off
Yes.
camera, and everything
Yes.
else. Now, you're running for Angels Camp City Council.
Yes, I am.
And I guess the short question for some of you is, now why? What do you hope to accomplish?
Well, in the hopes of accomplishing anything, that's a tough one because we have to get into a system that sometimes is difficult to accomplish stuff. But
Right.
I feel that I'd like to break into that system and bring a different kind of thought pattern to the city council, more of a thinking outside the box, a common sense approach, which has worked well for me in the past.
Right.
The reason for getting involved, John, is we sit back and we complain. We always complain.
Right.
I'm one of those people because we all think we have the answers, but very seldom do we step up to the plate and say, it's time that I stop my complaining, get active, get involved, and represent the people here.
Right.
And so I decided that was time. It was time. Put my feet to the fire, as you'd like to say, John.
Well, it should be fun.
Oh, it has been so far.
So far, yeah. Because
it
once
has
you
been so far.
declare like that, it all starts kind of sets wheels in motion.
Oh, it certainly does.
Yeah.
It certainly does. It changes your perspectives. Doesn't change your value system or anything like that, but your perspective on things definitely has a change, because you want to be the person that you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to compromise that.
Right.
And I promised myself once I took this opportunity to run that I wouldn't compromise my principles.
Right.
And so far, so good.
Very cool. Now, your background is business, and I think
Yes.
one of the things that you want to try to bring a more business-like approach to the city. Is that
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a good way to put it. And a lot of people get nervous about that. Oh, business,
Right.
bigness. But what I mean by business approach is not everything is cut and dry when you're running a business. You have a bottom line, but sometimes the bottom line isn't always the right thing.
Right.
And you have to make that decision as an owner and as the head bottle washer. You have to make that decision. I know there was many times that Kelly and I would make decisions that were right that cost us.
Right.
Cost us money.
Right.
And sometimes I think you have to do just what's right. And
The long view, so to speak. I mean, it's,
absolutely. Building bridges is very important. We can knock down bridges in a real hurry, but it's tough to build bridges.
Yeah.
And when you're going to be doing something for a long period of time, you have to build those bridges, and sometimes you have to make those decisions that aren't always good for the bottom line.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I think a lot of people demographically think that the next 15, 20 years for Calaveras County and everything else is we're kind of the sweet spot as far as demographics. If we're looking for the Tahoe area is basically
Sure.
built out. I mean, I think
Sure.
there's going to be a lot of center of
Sure.
gravity pressure on changes here in the county, and it's how do you see the next few years? And
Well, I really believe that the next few years are critical because we're coming off a recession
right.
that's really damaged a lot of communities.
Mhm.
Our community really has been damaged because we really never had a sound economic basis in our county.
Right.
So obviously you're seeing that now, that it's really having an effect, and we're all hoping that it comes out. And of course, stimulus money has been available. Do we get our fair share? Do we get what we're supposed to get? That's up for debate. But what we do now, I feel, is so critical for the next 10 years.
Right.
Because we're going to make our steps based on the financial impact over the next few years. I know when in business, or when I was running my business, I would never make decisions based on the lowest common denominator. I would always make my decisions based on the highest common denominator. And for example, you'd always want to make a change.
Mhm.
People, when you're in business, the guys who work for me, they'd always come, well, I'd like to change this, I'd like
Right.
to change this.
Right.
And I says, well, how will that work in the midst of our busiest time?
Mhm.
They said, well, it wouldn't work so good, but it would work good now. And I said, well, you don't make those decisions now. You make them when they have the most effect on you. And right now, when we're coming out of this economy, and some people say, it's not for sure, are we coming out yet?
Yeah, we may have a few more dips before
We may have a couple dips, and I just hope we make decisions that are based on where we want to be and not where we've been. I think that would be not a good thing.
I think there's been the clamor for, and I guess as because people are looking at the county, as the county, I guess, matures, so to speak. I mean, and kind of in light of some of the economic development summit stuff that we had last week,
Right.
some of the conversations,
Right.
is we need to develop a jobs base. And, in the past we've been, if the construction cycle was good and guys were
Correct.
swinging hammers, it was working okay. But what would you see, because right now, if you look at the public sector, is by and large the largest, it's the largest public employment block.
Absolutely.
What do we try to do to to balance that out, to go more, what can we do, or what can the city do as to try to, jobs create, or is that even, or you're more in the reactionary mode on the council and see what comes at you?
Well, you are, but I think you can be proactive also. I think you can go after
Mhm.
and look for stuff, but you have to have a game plan. And I think the game plan is starting to come together.
Mhm.
At least I've seen more progress now
Yeah.
than I've seen in the past as far as having a plan to bring viable businesses. And I think that is the key. Businesses, just for business sake, really helps no one out.
Right.
We need long-term businesses in this community. Now, what exactly does that mean? Yes, we're a tourist capital. Not a capital. We feel we're a tourist capital. I think
We're a blip.
we're a blip, but we
It's
feel
our largest
that way.
yeah.
And we have to conquer that. We have to get a high percentage of that type of business in our area. To do that, we obviously have to have a place where people want to come.
Right.
The foothills of the Sierras are very similar, pretty much all along the western end of the Sierras, and so we have to provide an area that attracts people. We have a beautiful area. We have beautiful lakes. We have the skiing up the hill in the winter. But what do the people do once they're here? Is there businesses that accommodate those people? Is there retail that accommodates those people? I think we fall short, and that's what we need to go after. I, for one, would like to see growth, but I'd like to see intelligent growth. Within our city plan, everybody that's moved up here has wanted this area to be the way it is.
Right.
And I can't find anybody, John, that says, let's change it. As I'm looking out my window here, I look at this open space, and that thrills me to death. And we have to have that open space, but we also have to know that if we do things like we did them today, we're going to do it tomorrow, and nothing's ever going to change.
Right.
So, am I a guy for change? Not in the regard that we've been bannering around change lately, but things have to be done. Things have to be done.
Now this may kind of veer off the campaign interview questions a little bit. This is kind of on the same vein as growth. So I was having a discussion with somebody who's part of he's part of one of the community planning coalitions or something like that. And we had an interesting discussion, and I think it was what he didn't want Calaveras County to become.
Okay.
And his thing is if we have, and I guess how do we get there? Because if you look at a lot of tourist areas that, because a lot of our money is imported. People who retire up here, people bring their money. And there's a lot of times as you retire and you do want stuff to kind of stay the same.
Correct.
But it can have some unintended consequences. Now, he was talking about the area around Santa Barbara and also up at Lake Tahoe, to where what it's done is the middle class has been hollowed out so much that you end up with the very high end of the market and conversely the very low end of the market, because the growth, I guess the lack of growth, I don't know how to describe it, but I mean, if you have the stagnation can have an unintended consequence as well. I mean, it's a
Right.
still,
Well,
it's how do we do that? Foster that middle class.
I think that's a great question, because if you look at the two examples you cited, Santa Barbara and Lake Tahoe,
obviously nice places, but
beautiful places, but they're regulated to death.
Right.
They're probably the two of the highly regulated places, and every time we over-regulate, it pushes a segment of our population out because you can't exist. Normal businesses can't exist under that situation.
Right.
Look at Tahoe. Tahoe is at a point now where they're starting to hurt really bad, really bad. And what happens? There's more regulations in Tahoe, more regulations in Tahoe. So to live there, you pretty much can't. You pretty much have to be wealthy to live in Lake Tahoe.
Bring your money with you, 'cause
I
you're
would
not
hate
gonna
to
make
see
it
this
better.
area ever get like that.
Yeah.
But in not allowing that happen, we have to think of the type of growth we want. For example, the idea in my mind to have the satellite for Columbia College
Yeah.
is just incredible, because you look at that brings jobs to this area, that brings families to this area, and then also in that vein, the talk about expanding Mark Twain Hospital. See, that brings people here that create satellite jobs off those.
Right.
And that's what we need.
Right.
But the demographics is what we need to improve on, is we need to have more people. Unfortunately, many say, I don't want any more people. Well,
Right.
you really can't have any kind of growth without more people. So it has to be done intelligently, and that's something I'm going to be definitely pushing for if I'm elected to the council.
Yeah. And sorry we veered
Oh,
off.
no,
I
that-
thought those were kind of
no,
questions out with your business background and history
Well,
in the area. I thought it was interesting.
it is.
How do we get to that middle ground as far as
It's
the
very
growth?
difficult, but you have to have sustainable growth. I've always heard that bandied around, that sustainable growth, and I always thought about, well, what do you mean by that? It means that, the growth that comes in is able to stay. I mean, it's not going to die in a year. As we all know, people that go into business, their first year is troublesome.
It's a tough one.
And right now, with the economy the way it is, and the availability of credit, holy cow!
Oh, I know.
It's a very tough operation.
It is.
But hopefully we can persevere that.
Oh yeah. I mean, now if you look at the city now, what do you
Yes.
see are the biggest obstacles or biggest I guess issues with actually Angels Camp itself right now?
Well, unfortunately, I think one of the biggest obstacles is this issue of the new people against the not old people in terms of age, but the old residents, the longtime residents, that have this fear that the change that is proposed by anybody that wants to have a little bit of change is going to just push things off the map. And I want to sit here and reassure people that that's not going to happen. It just won't happen, because no one wants that.
Right.
But we want to be viable, and unless we decide to come together as a community, we're going to have trouble with that, because every little project that comes through is going to be opposed by some and okayed by others. And we need to really get behind it if we're really concerned with the health of this city. And I really am. I think we can't take too many more hits.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think along with that was a little bit of a wake up fiscally, if you're looking at this year's budget going forward.
absolutely.
Is I think Angels Camp has been seen as the bright spot versus the
Yes.
county as far as
Yes,
fiscal reserves.
absolutely.
But if you look at how much they were underwater this year, you go like, man, that won't even last 3 years. I
No.
mean, it was.
No.
So
No.
you have to.
No.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I mean, I was at the council meeting the other night when it was so unfortunate that the council had to release one of the officers.
Right.
I mean, that broke everybody's heart. I mean, anybody that has any concern for the city, that's part of the community that is so important. And we want to make sure that we have a viable police force. It's no different
Mhm.
than jobs. It's the viability, and unfortunately, when the economics is turned south, you know, bad cuts have to be made.
Yeah.
And you know, it was unfortunate the other night. I felt for that officer, and I wish him well.
And I guess the one thing I would have to pat the council on the back is, and I think Jack Bodie made it. He wanted to roll. I mean,
Oh.
everybody was on. You know, they made sure
Absolutely.
it was a across the board vote. You know, everybody had to stand up and make that vote. Which
Absolutely.
I thought was actually, in light of the unfortunate decision they had to make, I thought that was kind of a nice. I mean, in a weird way, kind of an even-handed touch.
No, it's the right way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and we know in politics how little that happens. That things do it the right way. I mean, on the national level, if you don't have to vote for something because you don't have an election coming up, or,
Right.
so you
Right.
can vote the way you really want to, and then the others that you know you have to vote, and it's crazy. You should vote your principles.
Yeah.
You should do what's right. You know, you have to have your core values, and when you start tweaking your core values, then you really don't have any.
Right.
And that's the one thing I won't do.
All right. And wrapping up, anything
Yeah.
you want to leave with? Because how many weeks were you know?
Wow, we're down
We're
to
getting
like
down there,
we're
yeah,
down like
3 or 4
2
weeks.
weeks. I guess 2 weeks from is it 2 weeks from Tuesday?
Wow.
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting close. All I can say is I think if the people of Angels Camp vote me into office, they'll be proud of the job I do. They'll see that I'm an independent voice, an independent thinker. I reason out issues. I've handled tough issues before. I can make tough decisions, but I also have a compassion for our city,
Mhm.
and I think combining the two would make me a very good choice for the city council.
Very nice.